This podcast is an invitation to feel and experience the souls of famous old Hollywood homes and to have an in-depth journey to the areas where they're located through interviews with longtime residents. Either you're a fan of old Hollywood in Los Angeles, planning to have a vacation, or, an even bigger step, considering a certain area for your future home. This is your opportunity to receive valuable information and insightful advice you won't find anywhere else.
Hello, and welcome to my podcast. Are you in the mood for California? Today we'll feel and experience Lake Tahoe, followed by an interview with inspiring Robert DeLaurentis.
I spent my summers growing up at Lake Tahoe, and my family had a very small but nicely located place in Squaw Valley. They now call it the Palisades to be a little more politically correct, but I have very fond memories of the valley. I had a mini bike that I would explore the meadow and up into the mountains, a lot of hiking, a lot of rafting, a lot of trips to the lake. Eventually I would fly some RC planes up there, and the Tahoe Truckee Airport would later become one of my sponsors on the equatorial and polar circumnavigations. I worked up there as a kid. Just a lot of really happy childhood memories.
Masha Korpacheva is a California-based realtor and a member of the National Association of Realtors in Los Angeles. She's an advocate for selling and buying homes with soul and practicing mindfulness in real estate. With master's degrees in spiritual psychology and linguistics, Masha brings all of her skills to work with her clients. An intuit and empath, she has touched many lives with her outstanding ability to see beyond the visible and helping to come to better understanding of issues and their resolutions. An adventurous world traveler, from climbing Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania to exploring the Galapagos Islands, Masha has a particular passion for the City of Angels. Having landed in this paradise and adopted it as her home, she's been sharing old Hollywood stories since 2007. In the mood for California, feel the soul of old Hollywood.
And now, are you ready to experience Lake Tahoe? Lake Tahoe isn't just a lake. It's a legend, a deep blue jewel cradled in the Sierra Nevada, shimmering with mystery and history. Its waters, so pure they seem unreal, plunge to the depths that have long fueled tales of the unknown. It's a place where science, folklore, and Hollywood glamour intertwine, making it one of the most fascinating destinations in the world. The legendary Jacques Cousteau, famed ocean explorer, is rumored to have undertaken a deep dive into Lake Tahoe in the 1970s. When he resurfaced, he allegedly muttered, "The world isn't ready for what was down there." What did he see? Some say ancient creatures. Others whisper of long-lost secrets lurking in the abyss. The lake's supposed resident monster, Tessie, has been spotted by locals for generations. Perhaps a giant sturgeon, or perhaps something science has yet to name. Long before the first settlers arrived, the Washoe tribe called this pristine lake home. For over 10,000 years, they revered it as the heart of their world, a sacred source of life and balance. They named it Da-o-ga, meaning edge of the lake, a name later anglicized into Tahoe. The basin itself was shaped by dramatic geological forces, volcanic activity, and shifting fault lines some 2 to 3 million years ago. The result? A deep, crystalline lake over 1,600 feet at its deepest point, making it one of the deepest in North America. Mark Twain, ever the poetic observer, fell under Tahoe's spell in the 1860s, declaring its air the same the angels breathe. But as he penned his musings, Tahoe was being transformed by industry. The discovery of silver in Nevada's Comstock Lode sent timber demand soaring, and the lush forests surrounding the lake were quickly harvested to support the booming mines. Entire mountainsides were stripped bare. Their wood sent down massive flumes to build Virginia City and fuel the railroads. It would take over a century for the forests to begin their slow recovery. By the early 20th century, Lake Tahoe was no longer just a wild frontier. It was a playground for the rich and infamous. The Calneva Resort, which straddles the California-Nevada border, became a magnet for Hollywood stars and notorious mobsters. Frank Sinatra co-owned it in the 1960s, hosting secretive parties attended by the likes of Marilyn Monroe, Dean Martin, and even some shady figures. Monroe herself spent her last weekend at the resort, adding yet another layer of mystique to Tahoe's long history of intrigue. Lake Tahoe's history is dotted with eerie tales, some tragic, some absurd, all captivating. There's the ghost of a chef supposedly mauled by a bear who still roams an old lodge kitchen. And then there's the bizarre story of a sunken elephant. In the late 19th century, a circus was crossing the lake when a violent storm struck, sinking a ferry and dooming several animals, including a massive elephant, to the depth. Some say its bones still lie at the bottom, waiting to be rediscovered. Despite its storied past, Tahoe remains one of the most breathtaking natural wonders in the world. It has lured artists, musicians, and dreamers for decades, everyone from Sammy Davis Jr. to Cher and Alanis Morissette has called it home. Its sapphire waters continue to reflect the endless sky. Its slopes draw skiers and hikers alike, and its forests whisper stories of the past to those who are willing to listen. So whether you come for the skiing, the hiking, or the history, know this: Tahoe is a living, breathing legend waiting for you to add your own story to its depths. And here we are. I'm so excited to have Robert DeLaurentis here with me. Robert DeLaurentis, the Zen Pilot, is an aviation speaker, author, and pilot with over 2,400 flight hours. He holds multiple flight ratings, a commercial pilot certificate, and has flown to 53 countries across all 7 continents, including solo crossings of the North and South Poles. As seasoned real estate investor, Robert built a portfolio of 300 plus San Diego rental units over 28 years, starting with a single condo in 1990. His journey inspired Flying Thru Life, a book on business, aviation, and personal success. He owns Innorev Enterprises Inc., managing residential and commercial properties. He holds an accounting degree from USC and a graduate degree in spiritual psychology from the University of Santa Monica. A former U.S. Navy lieutenant commander, he served for 14 years before retiring in 2003. Please check out Robert's websites www.flyingthroughlife.com and www.pole-to-poleflight.com. Robert will share with us his spectacular journey and his favorite place in California. Hello, Robert.
Hello, how's it going?
It's going very well. How is it going for you?
It's a great day in San Diego. It's sunny and nice weather. I just came back from a flight. One of my friends took me up, and I don't always get the opportunity just to, observe and enjoy it. Usually I'm the one flying the plane, so it was a nice treat.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yes, and it is a treat for me to have you as a guest on my podcast. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Maria.
So, Robert, you have quite an interesting life, and you've lived in various parts of California, from the San Francisco Bay Area to San Diego, where you're now. So, how has the Golden State shaped your outlook on life and your adventurous spirit?
I think it's hard not to live in California and not appreciate the beauty, and it's so obvious. So, I'd like to think that I'm in a space of gratitude when I'm here in California. And the more beautiful it is, the more you want to explore. So that sort of feeds into my nature, wanting to see as much as I can, to go to different places throughout the state and just be in a space of gratitude, which is, of course, the highest energy that we can experience. So I'm blessed to be here. And I definitely come back in the wintertime from the Pacific Northwest because it gets a little cloudy and cold and wet up there. And then in San Diego, it almost seems like every day is perfect.
Yes, I can see that. And of all the places that you've called home in California, which city holds the most special memories for you and why?
I spent my summers growing up at Lake Tahoe, and my family had a very small but nicely located place in Squaw Valley. They now call it the Palisades, to be a little more politically correct, but I have very fond memories of the valley. I had a mini bike that I would explore the meadow and up into the mountains, a lot of hiking, a lot of rafting, a lot of trips to the lake. Eventually I would fly some RC planes up there, and the Tahoe Truckee Airport would later become one of my sponsors on the equatorial and polar circumnavigations. I worked up there as a kid. Just a lot of really happy childhood memories.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Do you ever go back?
I do. I still have that family place, and I spent this last summer renovating it, which was badly needed. It hadn't gone through many improvements over the years, and now it's a little more suited to my tastes. So I'm really happy when I'm there. It's a joyful place.
Beautiful. Isn't it interesting to be renovating your childhood home and making it more to your tastes? Almost like, when you're a child, you don't really have that much choice. Your parents just, bring you into life and you live where they tell you that you'll be living. And renovating a childhood home must feel very, very special.
Yeah, there was a lot of emotions, flowing through that place. I always considered it my dad's place, and he had a different, rental philosophy than I do now. But, it maintains a little bit of his influence, but more mine, and it feels, more comfortable than it did as just purely a rental property before.
That must have been very healing for you.
Yeah, it sure was. And it was interesting, Maria, because when he passed a couple years ago, I just knew that I needed just to sit with that place and not, get rid of it, to see what feelings and, emotions came up, what thoughts I had when I was there by myself. And it's actually been a nice healing process, to deeply feel everything that was coming up, and sort of chart my path forward.
That's beautiful. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. And also the fact that the airport in Tahoe supported your expeditions, that is quite serendipitous.
Yeah, on my first equatorial circumnavigation, I tried to anticipate the hardest thing I would have to do during that trip. And what I came up with was landing at night with mountains, and zero visibility on an island when I was tired and, alone. And in California, you can't land on Catalina Island at night. But I went up to the Truckee Airport, and when there was some bad weather at night, I would go up and just practice my approaches until I got them perfect. And at that point, I realized I was, ready to take on the rest of the world.
Wow, that is incredible. Well, growing up and living in all these diverse environments, what do you think actually sparked your desire to take risks and pursue a life of exploration, both in the skies and beyond?
Well, My mother was very adventurous. And I remember as a little boy, we went horseback riding. I had a motorcycle, a little one, and my mom always wanted to go for rides on it. We went hot air ballooning, and she just got, so excited on these trips.
Hmm.
It was a real bonding experience, but it was, gently encouraging me to do that. And then I remember I went to an all guys Jesuit high school, and our families wrote us letters when we went away for this weekend camp. And my dad wrote something. He said, go into the world and embrace life. That just always stuck with me. My family lived overseas in Jakarta, Indonesia for a number of years when I was a kid, about age 10 through 12. And we did a lot of traveling. So I got to, witness that sort of sense of adventure as a kid. And then, once you get the travel bug, you just can't stop. At
Yes.
least I couldn't, not at that stage in my life.
Yes, very true. I can absolutely relate to that because when I was a child, my mom took me on different trips, and now traveling is my favorite thing to do out of everything that I ever do.
Yeah, it's magical. I think that's one of the threads that connects, humans. They like to explore and have adventures and travel. And that's kind of what has kept societies connected, right? Especially when they have disagreements. You go over to other places and you find out that, well, they might have a different religion or color or just different beliefs, but the core beliefs are almost always the same. And that's the focus, on family, safety, financial security, health, joy, happiness, all those things.
Very, very true. Very true. And it also takes you out of your own mind because whatever concept you have about yourself or life can really be changed when you're traveling because all of a sudden you can see yourself in a completely different light.
Yeah, when I moved up to the Pacific Northwest, I remember thinking exactly that. Like I had lived in San Diego for 35 years, and a lot of my friends knew me from a long time ago, and their perception of me was composed of, many interactions from a long time ago when maybe I hadn't done as much work on myself to present day. But when you move somewhere, they only know you as you are now. And then you're
Yes.
writing sort of new history. So I think it's really healthy to make sure that you have different chapters in your life. Don't just include one place or one group of friends.
Yes, yes, very true. Because how people see you actually affects you in a way more than we know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Robert, you call yourself Peace Pilot, and it is a very strong, it is very honorable definition. So, what does it actually mean to you, and how do mindfulness and spirituality play a role in your experiences as an aviator and in your life as a whole?
That's a big question. I started out as the Zen Pilot. That was my second book, and it was interesting because now we've sort of redefined it, and I'm saying I'm the Peace Pilot because I went on this world peace trip, and I think we're constantly evolving. And at the time, I was defining myself as the Zen Pilot. I was going through graduate spiritual psychology courses for a degree, and then eventually an advanced graduate degree in consciousness, health, and healing. And, I felt like I did some good work on myself, but then I felt like I was ready to go out into the world. And it's really easy, to get stuck behind your computer, especially when things like COVID are happening. But I felt like it was really important to go out in the world and try and be somewhat of an example and not let the challenges of the day sort of stop me. And, COVID came back in 2019, 2020 when I was doing my polar circumnavigation. And I remember thinking, God, it would just be so much easier to go back to the United States. I was in Sitges, Spain at the time. And one of my mentors, Susan Gilbert, said, no, you need to stay because, this is just another challenge on your trip. And it was funny because, I was trying to find peace in the world. And I came to realize that I couldn't find peace in the world until I could find it in myself. And I was at a place called the Zen Villa. That's how it was advertised in the newspaper. And I remember, trying to go deeper and, find this inner peace so that then I could continue my trip and, ask people out in the world, how do you find peace in your world, So it's really interesting timing as all this was unfolding. I was having the opportunity to, make these steps ahead and, deal with all the challenges. But in short, it's been an evolution, just like everybody, sort of lives and learns. And I think a lot of these lessons are out there for us in the world. Some people read about them in books. I think, your average day is jam-packed full of the lessons that you need. And just being mindful and observing your surroundings and experiencing all these things that are happening are critical, for that evolution.
Yes, yes, I couldn't agree more. That's so very true. Basically, every lesson we have in every day of our life is to learn to be more peaceful inside.
Yeah, and I think, learning to love yourself is a great challenge and one of the reasons why we're here on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot easier to love a child or a pet. But then when you think about, do you really love yourself? And, what are the barriers that have been erected over time that maybe prevent you from doing that? So it's a big journey in introspection.
Very, very true. Yes, I agree with you. Well, now I would like to go a little bit more into detail about your solo flights around the world and pole-to-pole circumnavigation. This is just absolutely remarkable. You already did share the moment when you were learning to land in the dark. Maybe you can share some other moments during these missions that really tested your limits and how you overcame it.
I think one of the most challenging moments was in Dakar, Senegal. And I remember, checking the weather report, and there was a sandstorm, and I was above the sandstorm and the clouds, and it was, crystal clear for as far as you could see. And then I remember descending into sort of the haze, and it was like this really sort of creepy and dark feeling. I was aware that the energy was sort of changing. And my first thought was, I'm looking forward to leaving this place.
Mm-hmm.
And I touched down, taxied in, and I was going to fly out the next morning. And sometimes, you take fuel at night. And the guy that I met was the fueling guy was, very well spoken, clean cut, polite. And I thought, I'm going to fuel tonight because I like this guy. He's going to be really helpful. So I was fueling, and I had 5 fuel tanks inside the plane, 4 in the pressurized cabin and 1 in the luggage compartment. And actually it was 5 inside, 1 in back. I'm sorry about that. So anyway, I'm fueling, and the fuel's coming out quite quickly. And then all of a sudden there was this loud pop. And the tank had actually burst, and the fuel was spraying into my eyes, my chest, my arms, my legs, my groin. And I remember falling backwards out of the plane, away from this fuel that was spraying on me. And I remember thinking that I was dead, like, okay, now it's going to catch on fire. There's going to be flames and explosion, and this is going to be the end of the trip. And I was, in a way, thinking, okay, I got the hardest part of the trip done. I made it over the South Pole. And, it was such a stressful trip. In a way, it was going to be a relief that was finally over. And I remember falling backwards, and I fell to the ground. I hit the ground, and I was still alive, right? There were no flames. My eyes, of course, had fuel in them, and I was, get me water. And then I jumped back into the plane. And I remember that was the moment in time where the mission became more important than me. And I had a survival knife on me, and I cut, one of the fuel lines to direct the fuel out of the plane. And then I had a piece of plastic that I was able to grab, and I was trying to deflect the fuel that was spraying inside the cabin. And there's a point in your life or in your mission where what you're doing is more important than just your life. And that was a defining moment for me, because I finally experienced the importance of this trip, and I knew that the mission needed to continue.
Wow, that is so powerful. That is incredible.
Yeah, it was interesting too, because the next day I had, gone to the hotel and was showering, trying to get the fuel off me, and I had some fuel burns, because Jet A fuel is not good for your skin. And I remember I left the plane. The handler that I had said, "Hey, I got a family. I got to leave." So we just closed the door on the plane, and I could see a little bit of fuel dripping out the bottom. But I got back to the plane the next day and opened the door, or the hatch, and the smell of jet fuel was just overwhelming. And I remember I had talked to some people and they said, look, it's not very flammable. It has to be the right temperature and it has to be sprayed and all these conditions. And perhaps the pressurization of the plane will push it out. So I got in and I started the plane and took off. And, the smell of jet fuel, you could feel it burning your sinuses, your eyes would water. And when you would swallow, you could taste it. But that's what I experienced for the next several months flying home. And I got back to San Diego and they pulled up the floorboards and there was 10 gallons of jet fuel still sort of sloshing around, beneath the floorboards. So it was already a very difficult trip, with all these different struggles. But that fuel, it was kind of like the universe was notching it up another level. And I started to wonder, why do I need to suffer so much on this trip?
Yes.
I didn't figure it out until a year later. And, there were these things that I had mentioned that connected people. But then I finally realized that all living things suffer. It's the one thing that we share with all living things, It might be a bird that's, got a broken wing, or a plant, that's being attacked by bugs or something. I mean, all living things suffer. And it was just another way that I was connecting with humanity and, all living things on the planet. That's part of oneness. We're all connected.
Wow. Wow, that is so incredible. And how remarkably it works with your name, Peace Pilot, because, unless you really suffered, you cannot have compassion for others. And there is really no peace without compassion.
Yeah. What's funny too is the timing. The documentary Peace Pilot that just released on Apple TV, Amazon Prime, and Google TV December 3rd. We were trying to finish that film, for 4 years. And there was so many delays. It was one thing after another. It was frustration. It was expense. Key players were having meltdowns and issues. And I finally figured out that it was releasing just at the time everybody was talking about World War III and, is there going to be a global conflict? And I was thinking, God, we're closer to war than I've ever been in my life. And this documentary is now miraculously released and it's out in the world, hopefully, having impact.
Yes, absolutely. I hope that my listeners will watch this documentary and that it will be in their list. That's a very special theme, and it's a very special time to watch this movie.
Yeah, the timing, the synchronicity of that is undeniable. And on the trip, there were times where, you go, wow, I got lucky that one time. And then you cheat death again and again and again. And you go, wow, once you're lucky, twice you're really lucky, 3 times it's getting hard to explain. And when it happens 7 or 8 times, it's beyond explanation, right? It's happening for another reason that we're maybe not totally aware of.
Very true. Yes, 100%. Wow, Robert, thank you so much for sharing. This is so deep, and this is so special to hear this first account of a person who endured so much and who learned so much undertaking such an incredible solo trip around the earth. It's just mind-blowing.
No, when I watched the documentary, we shot 72 days high resolution footage, and it's, condensed into an hour and 52 minutes. So it's pretty fast paced. But when I watch, I can't believe it. I think, well, that person isn't me. But you're sort of pushed and guided to do and, persist and maybe accomplish things you wouldn't normally do. So yeah, I think it's a really great documentary. I think all our hard work paid off, and I'm very proud of that.
Yes. And you did say that, you realized that the mission that you were on is way more important than you are. And that's why it came out the way it did. So it was this mission that you embarked on, not knowing where it will take you. And you learned so many lessons. And it's a great way of sharing it with people.
It ultimately became a mission of faith, right? Because you have to have faith that you're on the right course.
Yes.
And, there were times when, before the trip, I felt kind of lost and confused, but I never felt like I didn't know which direction I was supposed to proceed on the trip. So it very much felt guided.
Mm-hmm.
I was clear on what my mission was.
Right, right. Very true. Wow. Well, Robert, besides all these incredible experiences that you had physically, flying the plane and exploring and going through suffering, as you just shared, so you are also an author. And you have written several books, and your books weave together themes of spirituality, adventure, and also human connection that is very important to you. So, what deeper truths about life and the human spirit have you uncovered through your own writing? And how do you hope these insights will transform the perspectives of your readers?
Well, of course, writing is a very cathartic process. And my hope is that people can see that I went out into the world and had my discovery moments and my experiences, and that is a critical part of anybody's life. You have to go out into the world, and with AI and the media today, you get fed certain information, but I think it's important for people to travel, like we were talking about initially, have their own experiences, decide for themselves what the nature of people is, and how they fit in. And that really involves getting out from behind your computer and going into the world, taking some chances, and being curious.
Yes, yes, being curious is so, so important. I think this is one of the most important, elements that defines humans, curiosity.
Absolutely.
So, Robert, I have a couple of more questions left for you. One of the questions is, how do you define success? And has your definition evolved through your circumnavigation journeys and peace missions?
Yeah, absolutely. The first book I wrote was called Flying Thru Life. And it starts out with me in sort of a business mode where my highest priority was, making money, accumulating rental properties. I made a comment, I remember in that book, that the fastest way between 2 points was over the top of somebody. And they would call me Bobby D. Steamroller back in the day. And I was really focused on money. And then I had this sort of, I guess you could call it like a spontaneous awakening. I was walking through Balboa Park, and I had done that hundreds of times. And I had this moment where, the air was crisp and cool and the sky was perfectly clear. And you could see, the water droplets on the grass and the light reflecting and the birds chirping. And I had this thought that, my journey needs to be within as well. And it was at that point that, I decided I would take some time off and give back, because I had, experienced some great financial success in my life. And it wasn't just so I could get nicer clothes or a faster car or a bigger house. It was enabling me to go out into the world and, have these experiences and share them. So the money actually became a way to go out and evoke change in the world. And the DeLaurentis Foundation, which was formed back in, I think it was 2013, we've spent millions of dollars on these books and films and scholarships and, the circumnavigations, and now DeLaurentis International Airport on Whidbey Island. So, there's been an evolution to making money and then using it in the world for good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a path, just pretty tough life in terms of how I was interacting to a very different, sort of experience in the world.
Yes, 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 I can see that. Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you very much for sharing. And Robert, my last question to you. Imagine you're on your final flight and have the chance to deliver one last message to the world. What would you say and why?
Well, we have this actually on a plaque at DeLaurentis International Airport. And what I quoted there is that if you're not afraid, maybe your dream isn't big enough. So, in life, we deal with fear. Everybody maybe deals with it a little bit differently. And I think a lot of times when there's fear, there's message coming up. And what you don't want to do is sort of run away or back off, but actually go deeper into it, because I think there's a message in all that. And, at the airport, we overcame so many challenges. There was so much resistance. There was political issues and there was lawsuits, and, the place was a wreck and decrepit, but we just kept pushing. We went into it. There was stuff we didn't know or understand, but we sort of held our ground. And I think for people that want to experience growth in their life, you've got to push the envelope a little bit. It doesn't have to be over the top, but it's always, helpful to sort of go into that space where maybe you're not completely comfortable and feel the experience and go a little bit deeper into it.
Wonderful, wonderful. What a great message. Well, Robert, thank you so much for your time, for sharing your heart. And it is absolutely incredible how you really uncovered how you went from, like, as you mentioned, Bobby the steamroller to Peace Pilot, and how, you made the mission more important than yourself. And thank you for everything that you're doing. And thank you for dreaming big. It is really, really inspiring. And I really hope that a lot of people who are listening to our conversation will be inspired by you and will go and push the envelope a little bit and do something that they're afraid of.
Well, thank you for taking this interest in the mission of the foundation and helping to get this out into the world.
Of course, of course. Thank you, Robert. Until next time.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you very much for tuning in to feel and experience Lake Tahoe and the journey around the world with my special guest, Robert DeLaurentis. If you enjoy my podcast, In the Mood for California, please sign up for future episodes at your preferred platform, and please leave your feedback. I really appreciate your time and support. You can follow me on Instagram at In the Mood for California and check out my website, www.inthemoodforcalifornia.com. Selling and buying homes with soul is not just my real estate strategy. It's an intuitive and holistic approach that embraces your values, aspirations, and conscious intentions. If you want to discover the power of mindfulness in your real estate journey with my compassionate guidance, I'm here for you. Next time, we'll step through the silver screen and into the golden age of Hollywood, where echoes of laughter, ambition, and dreams still linger in the air. Where does Hollywood's magic truly reside? Is it in the celluloid frames of classic films, in the streets and landmarks that still whisper their stories, or in the passion of those who keep its legacy alive? I cannot wait to take this journey with you.
In the Mood for California. Feel the soul of Old Hollywood.